Cloud. All right, hello everyone. Today is October 30th, 2019. This is the bi-weekly cloud provider, SIG Cloud Provider meeting. So as usual, we'll start with sub-project updates and then we'll go into the agenda. I don't see anyone from Alibaba here, so we'll skip that. Provider AWS, any updates worth calling out?
Can you guys hear me? I'm having issues with my...
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I don't think we have too much. We're working on ETE tests. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a first implementation of that. And then Jay, do you have anything else beyond that? Yeah, I think that's it. I think we need to triage some of those issues that you've been pointing us to. I saw that one today. So that's also on our plate and we're aware.
Cool, and that's ETE test for the out-of-tree provider or for both?
I mean, well, it'll technically be for both because out-of-tree imports legacy, but yeah, it's out-of-tree.
Yeah, okay, cool. So I do want to call out one thing here. So we do have a cloud test suite. It only has one test, but I think if possible, it'd be good if we can move those, if you can add those tests to that suite so that other providers can run it. Yeah, as far as I know, like we have a cloud package in the ETE testing framework, and the only thing to test right now is deleting EC2 instance and then ensuring that the control plane deletes the associated node to that instance. But yeah, like if there are more common ones, like add them here so other folks can benefit from it.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, right now it's just kind of AWS specific stuff, but yeah, if there's anything common, I'll definitely add it there.
Cool.
I was sort of looking at your, I think there's a E2E testing KEP, but I think it's mostly just saying like, you should have at least one EDE test and publish the results.
Yeah, that was more for like the publishing side of it. Like it'd be great if we want as many providers like running conformance and then uploading it to test grid, so we have some signal to give to the release team. But yeah, that was just it. Just upload test grid. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Cool. All right. Skip Azure. Walter's on the call today. We'll skip that. I don't see anyone from IBM. Don't see anyone from OpenStack. vSphere, we ran into an issue. Well, not really an issue, but we ran into a, I guess more of like a design limitation where.
I'm from OpenStack here. Just unable to unmute.
Right, awesome.
We are working on the CSI migration E2E tests currently, and they're working. So seems to be feature complete. We are currently at the automation of all the stuff.
Awesome, that's great news. Do you know if CSI, so do you know what the state of CSI migration is right now? I know it's supposed to beta in 1.17, but are we on track for that?
I'm not.
It's okay if you don't know. I was just wondering if you're looped in those conversations.
No, I'm not. Sorry.
Okay, cool. No worries.
Cheng might know that actually. I think he just joined.
Sorry, what's the question?
It's the state of CSI migration.
Yeah, are we gonna beta? Is that on track for beta in 1.17?
Yeah, that's the plan.
Okay, cool.
There's still some work left to be done, but we are targeting beta.
Okay, awesome. All right, so yeah, as I was saying earlier, we're running into issues on vSphere where, well, it's not really an issue, but we have an assumption in vSphere that you have one NIC for VM, and then you would assign, that one NIC to internal or external IP in the Kubernetes node. And so this is a common pattern for most cloud providers. Like you have one IP for internal IP, one IP for external IP. But then going forward, we have dual stack, and we have some environments where you want multiple NICs on a VM, but you want to be able to say which one is the internal external IP outside of what the cloud provider chooses by default. And so we're going through kind of like a design right now, trying to figure out how much what knobs we want to expose to the user to be able to determine what the internal external IP is. So if other folks run into similar things, especially with dual stack, I think this will be a more common problem. Please reach out and we can try to have more open discussion around this.
I'll just throw out there that we don't really, I mean, with the CS or with the CNI that we have, we don't really follow the one NIC. I mean, we have multiple ENIs on our node, but they're allocated to pods.
Right. So like when the node, is there a possible scenario where the node tries to look up its private IPv4 address and it accidentally looks up the ENI address instead of the actual node address?
So I think it knows how to determine that because the node is always ETH0, but we do, you know, like we do have a bunch of other interfaces on there. So if there was code that, I don't know, had assumptions about that, I just want to make sure that that's an acceptable use case, right?
Okay, cool, good to know. All right, so extraction migration. One thing that we're trying to do more often is try to get kind of a status roll up from all the providers on where they're at for the extraction migration efforts. So just kind of giving a quick summary of what this is tracking. The top here is entry providers, which ideally nothing really changes here because we're trying to remove that. But we're trying to get more updates on the other tree work and ideally try to get this as close to what's in tree or ideally better. So let's just go through the providers here and update this. So Alibaba folks aren't here. AWS, is there, I know there was that PR that merged. Are these done?
Yeah, so what does yellow actually mean?
Yeah, yellow means the feature's in, but it's not GA. So like
yeah,
alpha, beta.
I think we could be considered yellow for the controller loops that we have.
So is that for node service and routes, right?
Node service. So yeah, routes is there. It's only used by like KubeNet, I guess.
Okay. And
yeah, it's there.
ELB support is there too?
Yep, I believe that's
okay. Yeah. Cool. And then, do you know if
for Cloud Node IPAM?
That's
Google. What
only.
is that versus like CNI handling IPAM? Is that for like VPC setup or?
My understanding is that this is a controller that's specific to Google.
Yeah, that's correct. The controller manager has a special IPAM mode that is just for Google. I had put this red because I didn't know what the future plan for AWS is, but I'm pretty sure like most cloud providers are gonna have this as unsupported.
Is it something that is expected to be supported? I guess that's.
No, because I think.
I mean, considering that the CNI plugin does all IPAM, right?
Yeah, so I think we are covered by the route controller and by the CNI plugin that we have today, and then our future CNI plugin handles any IPAM management. So I don't know of a case that's not covered right now.
Yeah, it really depends who you ask. If you were to ask Walter, he'd probably say you may want to support it in the future. Because largely what it allows you to do is do pod allocation on a per pod basis and not like allocating a subnet per node, which allows for more efficient allocation of pod subnets because you're doing it based on the number of pods and not the number of subnets you can allocate per node, right?
So our default CNI does not do a subnet per node, but I don't know what the difference. I guess I'd have to look at the Cloud Node IPAM to understand the behavior there.
Yeah, our default CNI is very much dependent on the instance type, right? Because that's going to dictate how many ENIs can be on that particular worker node and how many
Yeah,
IPs
but it's
can be.
also in terms of subnet or CIDR range, it doesn't
Yes.
care other than the subnet that the instance is running in.
Yeah, I guess for this specific thing, which is the migration of cloud providers outside of KK, is the cloud node IPAM something that we need to work on something in the AWS cloud provider in tree to make it extractable, or is that already done? I guess that's what I'm missing.
Yeah, so I'd say like today we probably want this as like no support planned. But again, like I didn't want to just assume that.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
All right,
let's mark that for now, and then we can follow up with Walter and see if we should.
Sounds good.
Change that.
Cool. All right. So CSI is being worked on. Is Amazon working on network proxy, the API server network proxy?
Not right now.
Okay, but you plan to support it?
That's also TBD.
Okay.
So yeah, we are. We have interest, but we're not 100% sure.
Okay, cool. Okay, and test grid and credential provider both in progress, right? All right.
Test grid, yes. Credential provider as much as everyone else, I think.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, Azure. I don't see anyone from Azure here, so I'm gonna go ahead and skip that. Walter's on the call, so we'll skip Google as well. Is Timo on the call here? Nope. Just gonna skip that. IBM. Richard, are you on the call?
I am now. Yep. No
Okay,
updates other than what we have there is accurate as of today.
Okay, cool. And while you're on the call, I know there was some updates a few weeks ago around open sourcing the IBM cloud provider. Is that still in progress, or?
Yes, it is. I just got to find people to help me do it.
Okay, awesome.
Yep. So we're still wanting to do it.
Okay, cool. All right, OpenStack. Is this a accurate representation of how things are for the out-of-tree provider?
Yeah, so that looks pretty okay.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna update. Let me fill this in. So I don't think you're gonna work on Node IPAM anytime soon. Are you aware of the API server network proxy work?
I'm not sure what's going on there. No.
Okay, so I'll put this blue for now, and I can show you the captain stuff later. And we can update this later.
Okay, great.
Cool. All right, FreeSphere. This looks pretty accurate to me. Actually, I'm gonna put the credential provider as blue for now. And the CSI driver is GA, so I'll put that as green. Right, Travis?
Yes, that is correct. I'm wondering why yellow for test grid. Do you wanted to see more tests there, or?
No, I just put yellow because I wasn't sure at the time. But we're uploading for every minor Kubernetes release, right? For vSphere?
Yeah, I guess I need to look. Yeah, because we had continual conformance testing running, though I haven't looked at it in a while for the cloud provider. But there is, all of the tests that run on every PR are there on test grid as well. But I should double check on conformance probably before we put that green.
Okay, cool. All right. Cool. So Yassine's been doing work trying to get the CCM package moved to the cloud provider repo, so that when you try to vendor in all the CCM stuff, you don't have to actually vendor in the main Kubernetes tree. He's not on the call, so we'll skip this update. But he's been there's good progress on this one. Credential provider. Who put this here? Was it Nick? Nick, did you add this here?
I actually did not.
Okay.
That was me.
Okay, cool.
That was Jay.
Yeah,
Is
so
Mike,
I'm not
is
sure.
Mike on the line here?
I don't see Mike on the line. Yeah, Mike, I'm not sure. So my impression was that Mike was going to hand off this work to Nick. I don't
To
know if
Nick?
that was formally done.
It has not been formally done, so I didn't get the sense. I mean,
The memo?
yeah. Oh no, I mean, like I am happy to take the work, and I know we discussed that, but like you had a talk with him at some point, Andrew, and did he say that he was going to, or what did he?
Yeah, so I have not been able to get in touch with him.
Okay.
I think it's okay to say at this point that you should take the work, because it's been it's been about like 3 weeks since we got a response. So I think
Cool.
yeah, whoever is free to take the work, I think should take it.
Sounds good. All right, I'll put that on my backlog.
Yeah, so either talk to Mike and see if we can get this PR updated, or just open another PR and we'll close this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. So let's go to the agenda. There's just one item here. I just wanted a quick update on if we're all good to go for the KubeCon sessions in San Diego. So I know Nick and Fabio are set up for the intro, and then Yassine and Walter are set up for the deep dive.
Yeah, so me and Fabio we've met a couple times. We are working on the slides right now, so we'll be meeting again Monday. So I think we're good to go.
Cool. And Walter, for the deep dive, are you and Yassine, like, progress is good?
So we've discussed what we want to do. We've put together a slide timeline, and we're due to have the slides finished this Friday, and then we're both going to review them.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Okay, cool. Just gonna add it here again. All right, so that was it for the agenda. Folks want to add anything last minute? Otherwise, we can end early.
I actually had a question that I just thought of. I saw, so I know, let's see, I think Stephen Wong is on the call. I know you guys have been making some progress on user groups and what that means. And I was thinking that AWS should consider doing that. So I was wondering what the status is and if that's what we should do.
Well, I'll let you know I've got a meeting scheduled for next Monday before the steering committee. So I thought there were a number of indications that indicated that this would be, kind of a straightforward process, but I believe I'm the first one going through this. So I'm learning some of these things as I go along. And it does have a web portal, but I don't have a Slack channel or a Zoom meeting account or anything. So we haven't actually started. And right now I've got a proposed charter in a PR that's going to be evaluated by the Kubernetes Steering Committee on Monday. And I think maybe the best thing to do is you could certainly look at the track of the PRs that I've already opened and start following along. But maybe if you wait till I actually get the VMware user group on the air, the trailblazing will be done and it'll be more established than learning as you go along like I am. So far, I'm about 6-7 weeks into this. So, but I think maybe for the next.
Do you want to link those open PRs in the meeting notes?
Yeah, there actually is only one open now. So some of them have been closed. So the first steps are to just do effectively what you do for a SIG. So it's create aliases in sigs.yaml, and those went through pretty easily. But then there's a second phase. These technically aren't PRs, but they're, I don't know what you'd call them, tickets or something to open up a request for a Slack channel and a Zoom, and those aren't completed yet either. And the people doing that told me that they're going to wait until the steering committee acts on the charter. So
Okay.
what I can do, I think, afterward is maybe even a write-up on a summary of the whole process. Yeah, Walter?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, sure. I think this looks the doc that I guess this is the user group KEP maybe, or what are you looking at right now, Andrew?
This is the document explaining the life cycle of like SIG's working groups and user groups.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. That
Yeah,
looks like it has a.
One of the things I intend to bring up with the steering committee is, even though they do have that doc, I think some of these things maybe could use a little work. By that I mean, technically the process for a user group doesn't even say you need to have or should have a charter, but I think that's probably an oversight. So
go ahead.
Yeah. So when I go before the steering committee on Monday, I'm going to suggest that maybe they'd like to amend that document to make a charter mandatory. Because having run that old VMware SIG, and right now I'm a lead on the IoT Edge working group, I think there's great value in having a charter so that it's very clear what the scope of your group is, you know, kind of what the lane markers are, and have that clearly indicated in advance rather than run into some future dispute or controversy and then wonder what the rule set is.
So quick questions. I mean, so thank you so much if you do write that up. I think that'll be hugely useful for a lot of us. I know that we already have, I thought, some user groups sort of for several of the cloud providers under this SIG. And I do know we definitely have several cloud provider Slack channels that are owned by this SIG.
Yeah. So there are channels for the cloud providers, but I believe that those are predominantly for developer activity rather than end users. Nothing keeps an end user from going and putting questions in there. But I think there are...
But those are sub projects.
Yeah. So I think there's value in having an end user focused thing where end users, for example, could talk amongst each other. And I don't know that that really is necessarily something that belongs in a cloud provider channel. So I think there's utility in having both.
Oh, I'm not saying there isn't utility, but my memory was, and I'm happy to have someone like Nick correct me, but the various cloud provider channels seem to have slightly different emphasis for different cloud providers. So my memory was like the AWS Slack channel and group under this SIG tended to be more end user, and some of the other ones were definitely more developer focused.
No, it definitely is. And I thought that so I guess I didn't really understand what the point of migrating to user groups was. And I thought that was I thought user groups were replacing sub-projects in like for cloud providers under SIG Cloud Provider. Like you optionally, if you wanted the Slack channel, if you wanted that stuff, then you would become a user group. But it sounds like there's actually two different options. You can either be a sub-project or you can be a user group.
Yeah, and I think you could be both too. There's no reason it's either or. That's my intention with the VMware one.
So that seems.
I will say that go ahead, Nick.
I was just gonna say that seems like I don't think I would want to do that, just because then people have to choose where to go, and that seems confusing. But maybe I don't know. Maybe I just don't understand.
Yeah, it might be unique to our scenario because with VMware, we have multiple infrastructures for running Kubernetes. For example, people could run it on our desktop hypervisors, which are Workstation and Fusion, and they really would have nothing to do with the vSphere cloud provider at all. So having a user group to capture that, I think, makes sense. But this might not apply to other cloud providers.
Well, I will say that I think this is another reason, going back to one of your earlier points, that it makes a lot of sense to have the charter, just so that it's very clear what the purpose is.
Right. And by the way, I posted a link to that PR on the charter in the chat here. And then I think if you look in that PR, it might have, there's certainly the proposed charter is one of the files being checked in, but I think they may have left comments pointing to some of the prior steps. But when this is all over, I'd be happy to write this up just in case somebody follows my footsteps.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now I kind of feel like there's I don't hear a clear reason to change anything. So for
yeah.
now,
So the context is that like the cloud providers are a special case because they were SIGs and they already have established end users attending. And so the transition to user group may not make sense. But for most user groups, they're kind of starting off to just create a forum for users to discuss certain topics without actually having to be sponsored or owned by SIG as a sub-project. And so like big data is the classic example of there's no SIG and there's no code to actually own, but there are a lot of users who are running, big data platforms on Kubernetes. I just want to talk about it. And so like, I agree, like if it doesn't make sense for AWS because the sub-project forums are fine, then yeah, no need to create a user group. But if you do need one down the road, you always have the option.
Yeah, and I believe that the big data group actually predated the effort to create these user groups that are cloud focused. They've been out there for a while. And one could argue retroactively that the IoT Edge working group I'm in probably should be a user group because it really is a group of disparate users, but it dates back over a year before they had any concept of having user groups. So some of these things were done in a legacy world that's a little different than what's being shaped today. Machine learning is another one that's currently in there as a working group, but I would argue probably should be a user group instead. Anyway, any other questions about this process? Like I say, I'm learning as I go along and I'll keep this group informed. I'm aspiring to having this user group official and operational by KubeCon so that maybe we're too late to get a official meeting, but I'm hoping to just declare a meeting of some users who've already come to me and indicated they're interested. It's mandatory for this user group that you actually get a couple of non-vendor users to be inaugural sponsors, which I have. And I was able to, I've got 2 listed in my PR, but I identified people who were willing to go at a count bigger than that. So that's another step, is actually lining up users. And I think maybe someday I'd wish that, for this first, let's call it inaugural year, I, the vendor, am going to be a chair, but I'd hope maybe in a future year, the users might actually take this over.
Awesome. Okay. So it sounds like we have a clear answer, clear enough answer for this. Cool. All right. Anything else folks want to discuss? All right. Let's end 30 minutes early then. All right.
Okay.
See everyone in
Bye.
2 weeks. Thanks. Bye.
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 Bye.